Hi everyone, I'm GREYMOND. Today we're going to be answering questions about OCD recovery. As you know, I do these questions every week, so if you have a question that you would like to ask me, please leave it below this video or really any of my other videos and I'll pick it up on the next Q&A. So the first question today is, hi again, thank you again for your help. One question, how are you supposed to go about dealing with the feelings of wanting your theme and having feelings in your body, but also doing your exposure? Example is having a child on your lap. Okay, so again, because all of this is a part of OCD, and OCD really attaches to feelings. So whether you have feelings of guilt, feelings of being just, a sadness, depression, those kinds of things, feelings of what if I want this, or I feel like I want this. All of those are just part of feelings that are coming along with OCD. And again, to go back again into the theory, in case there's new people watching this, and I'm sure people who watch me every week are like, okay, Ali, enough with the same theory. But it's important, even if you have heard it before, to listen to it again, because it kind of has to get into your subconscious to understand how OCD works. Because the more you understand how OCD is, the less fear you're gonna have towards it. Because really, the one thing with OCD is it works kind of like math. If you do this, it's gonna do that. If you do that, it's gonna do this. It's always very logical in how it operates. That part of the brain that that creates OCD, or is responsible for OCD, is reactionary. It's not cognitive. It doesn't understand which thought you're having, what is the moral implication of the thought, how do you feel towards that thought. It doesn't have any ability to judge that. So it only understands thoughts in terms of your interpretation. So if you get a thought, and as I said before, people get 50,000 thoughts a day. 50,000 thoughts. Some are going to be pretty weird, okay? That's just regular, everybody kind of situation, right? So when you do get this weird thought, if you attach fear to it, that, you start to think, why am I having this thought? Or did I want to have this thought? Or did I do something, with false memory type of thing? You start to pay attention to it with fear and trying to solve it. Your mind, with that part of the mind that's reactionary, that doesn't understand the actual thought, it's looking to your reaction, understands that if your reaction is fear, the brain's primary job is to protect you, right? How can it protect you? By sending you more thoughts of the same type to bring this situation to your attention. So whatever you are focusing your attention on with fear, more fear on and more variations of this situation are going to come in. So the more you react, the more of the same you're going to receive, right? So that is why, whenever I say, don't do reassurance, don't do analyzing, don't do checking, right? There is a reason for that. It's because every time you are doing checking, every time you are doing analyzing, paying attention, you're strengthening that part. So you're making that part more important. The more important you make it, the worse your thoughts are going to get, because it's kind of like you're saying to your mind, this is important, please send me more. This is dangerous. Please send me more. And then when your mind sends you more thoughts with already fear kind of coming in on autopilot, right? Then you're like, why am I getting fear? Why am I getting thoughts? That is why, because you've already powered it up. So now that you have powered it up, you have to undo it. So the next time the thought comes in, and this is where exposure and response comes in, right? That next time the thought comes in, or situation, or depending on if it's like a physical OCD, cleaning, whatever, or if it's a mental type of OCD where it's just like a pure O, right? Most people with OCD have a combination of both, but just to kind of tell the difference a little bit, right? That when those things come in, when those thoughts come in, you are very focused on how you are reacting. You're not responding with fear. You refuse to respond with fear. Your brain says, oh, no fear. Maybe it's not as dangerous. But before it lets go of the thought, it's going to send you more, because at first it's going to look at you as if you are all of a sudden crossing a street on a red light. You haven't done it ever, but now you're just putting yourself in danger, right? So at first, you're going to get kind of a wave of different thoughts, different variations, and you just have to kind of stay strong. This is the first part of the recovery. And then as you go, your mind will say, okay, well, you are still putting yourself in danger, but nothing is happening. You're still alive. Everything's fine. And then it starts to let go of this fear. And that neural pathway, which is not being used because you're doing the work, starts to get weaker, and you start to lose that connection between your theme, your situation, and fear, right? Because right now, if you think of your theme, doesn't really matter what the theme is, right? If you think of your theme, and if you see something about it or something similar to it on TV, or somebody mentions something that has to do with it, you know you're going to get triggered already, because the connection is whenever you have anything to do with this, to send fear, right? So the brain is already connected the two. So now we need to unconnect it, unplug that. And to do that, we need to refuse to use that connection. It has to die out. You have to let it die, you know? You can't use it, and then it's kind of like, you know, I always give the analogy of putting gas in the car. I keep putting gas in the car and it's still running. I don't know how it's happening, you know? It's stop putting gas in the car, right? And at first, I like to talk in analogies and you know, because it just it allows you to kind of see more so like a third person perspective, you know, to kind of step back a little bit, you know. And it's the more you do this, the more you see, you start to feel a little bit better. You know, I felt better this week than last week, and now, okay, you know, another week passed and I'm starting to see it more clearly. It's not going to unplug right away, but the more you go, the more clearly you start to see it, and you start to see that it actually is working, and you start to lose fear. You start to see the process, right? Because again, you know, the one thing that is to your advantage is that OCD is very logical in its operation. As long as you don't use that neural pathway that connects to fear, it's going to start to get better. As soon as you start to use it, it's going to get worse, right? As you continue your recovery and as you go longer and longer, you know, that once that neural pathway dies out, then, you know, you're not really in danger of the thought returning, you know, if you slip up, right? But it takes time. And in the beginning where it's touch and go, you know, it's not good. Now, not everybody is like, I mean, you know, I have 8 years experience, going on 9 years now, of helping people recover from OCD. And nobody is, you know, a robot where they do everything correctly. It's never like that. It's more like few steps forward, then the person slipped back for whatever reason. They didn't pay attention, the thought came in, they got stressed, didn't pay attention, the thought came in, you know, or they just got too confident and weren't paying attention. However, the thought came in, I reacted incorrectly. Okay, fine. Pick yourself up. Next thought, react correctly. If you can do additional exposures to undo that step back that you just did, also helps, you know. So it's a process, and you can get over this, you know. Like I said, you know, years and years of experience, you know, I can tell you, you can get over this, but it's not a cold. It will not go away without you working on it. So if you don't work on it, you won't get over it. But if you do work on it, you absolutely can and will. You know, so it just depends on what you're going to do. And in terms of speed, a lot of the times people ask me, well, how fast am I going to get over OCD? Well, I am not, you know, a person who can predict the future. So I don't know, you know, if somebody asks me on YouTube, how fast am I going to get over it? I don't know. I don't know you personally. But when I talk to clients, I can usually, after first few sessions, in the first session, I can already tell if the person is going to recover or not. Just because how they're going, what is their outlook, how much they're pushing, all of that tells me what is actually going to happen. Now, in terms of how fast, you know, it's kind of like a race. You know, the less steps you take going backwards, the faster you'll recover. But as long as you keep going, you will still get to that finish line. So, you know, for example, my recovery, when I was recovering from OCD, was not the fastest. I would say, you know, comparing to my clients now, it's probably on the slow side, because I didn't have a plan. You know, it was a trial and error thing. You know, it wasn't a focused, structured thing when I was recovering, right? Now with my clients, it is focused and structured so they can go through it faster. But either way, however you're doing it, if you are seeing progress, you will still get to that finish line. So you just have to keep at it and keep going, you know. Don't stop. Make the OCD recovery your priority. The more you make it your priority, the faster you will recover, you know, because you're putting effort into it, right? And then to an extent, putting effort into OCD recovery also means putting effort in focusing your attention not on OCD but on other things while keeping an eye on OCD, right? So it's not like you have to put everything aside. No, you do want to be focusing on real life, right? But also having strong focus on where your thoughts are, and if your thoughts are on fear, or even if your thoughts are on aspects of, you know, kind of feeling sad that you are in the situation, feeling bad for yourself, you know, although, you know, since I was in that situation as well, I can tell you all those feelings are valid. But when you fall into thinking that way, it's still, you're sending a negative signal to your brain, and your brain starts to interpret situation as, you know, maybe not dangerous, but negative. Do you know what I mean? And that's not what we want to show the brain. We want to show the brain everything is fine, everything is great, stop sending me the thoughts. But to do that, you have to overpower it. You have to come from a position of power that, listen, brain, I got this, stop this. You know, everything is fine. That's the message that you want to be sending in all aspects of life. You know, in terms of even dealing with real life stress and things that maybe have nothing to do with OCD directly. But if you feel out of control there, then you start to get out of control with OCD as well. So it's all kind of interconnected. But the position of power is the primary thing here. If you are not sure if you're handling the OCD thought correctly, then that's the only question that you have to ask yourself. Are you coming from a position of fear, or are you coming from a position of power? So it's a yes or no question. If you're coming from a position of fear, even if it's a little bit of fear, change it to power. How can I come in the situation? How can I come at it from a position of power? And then do that. So next question, now that I gave you guys a whole big speech on it, but it's important to always kind of, you know, talk about this, because I find that, you know, the reason why a lot of the times, I mean, you know, pretty much all my clients, you know, people who have come to me, right, they come after seeing doctors, which didn't help or helped very little. And I find that the big part of it is because the doctor will be like, oh, here's prescription, here's a pill, take this, you'll feel better. You know, they might do CBT, but they don't explain how OCD actually works, why you're having these thoughts, what is happening, you know. And I find that it's very important to understand this theory, so then you can kind of piece it together. You can say, okay, I felt worse yesterday. Why is that? Maybe it's because the day before I had extreme stress, or maybe because I got sidetracked on something else, or because I paid attention to the thought, I did reassurance. You know, so you start to understand kind of like a mathematical equation of why you are feeling a certain way. And then same thing is when you're feeling better. You start to get power from it when you say, okay, I feel better today. It's because I did this, and this yesterday. I did this, and this today. I came from a position of power, and now I feel empowered. I don't feel in fear as much. It's probably still there, but it's not as much. And then you start to see, it's kind of like a game. You start to see it like that, where this is what's happening, this is why it's happening, this is how to make it go away. Okay, so next question is, do I have to wait for the thought to develop before I reject it? I would say the more you kind of live your life, the more you push through, as things come up, you know, just dealing with it as things come up. You know, so when you're in a situation where you can either pay attention, or you can either do a physical compulsion or not, you know, choosing to do it, right? Then on purpose, you can also do exposures on purpose. So say, for example, you know, say touching, if you have like cleanliness OCD, right? Contamination OCD. Touching things that are dirty on purpose, right? And you can work up to it. So say, for example, something is very scary to you, don't start with that, but start with a minimalist part of that. You know, I don't know, touch it with one finger, you know, or brush against it or whatever, you know what I mean? Just to get into normal routine of what everybody else would do. So this is the part of this question that I was just answering. When it comes to germs, I get so upset and confused. The other day I was walking and I stepped on a dead squirrel. When I got home, I did not know what to do with my sneakers or how to approach anything, as germs are real things everyone has their own way of dealing with. So while I was refusing the thought that I was contaminating the house, my body and other things, I was so unsure if I should wash my shoes, not wear them in the house, warn others that my shoes weren't in the corner, that I stepped on a dead squirrel. I just didn't know how to approach it. Okay, so with that, you got to think of, when these kind of situations come up, you got to think of how would another person handle it. So somebody who you're kind of most like, how would they handle that situation, right? And just do it how they do it. They probably would be like, okay, things happen, kind of either, if it's really bad, then wash them off, or just, kind of take the, just kind of like brush them off, or however you would say that, right? So, but they wouldn't really worry and stress about it. Sorry about that. So they wouldn't really worry or stress about it. So I would say that that's probably reasonable, but, and then afterwards, don't go over it over and over again in the mind. It's a good exposure though. Not that you should continue to do it. That would be kind of weird, right? But at the same time, it's not a big deal. Just push through. Hi, Ali. My thoughts are always what if thoughts. My first one was, what if I'm bisexual, which put me in the hospital and was making me sick to my stomach, vomiting. Then it went to, what if I don't love my boyfriend? What if I'm a pedophile? What if I want to be a man? How can I continually tell myself that this is just OCD and not take them seriously or have them affect me? Okay, so you can see that just like you mentioned these thoughts, right? So what was it, like 4 different kinds of thoughts. So if it's a thought that has anything to do with these themes, it's immediately OCD. And you can see how it's jumping from one to another. And when one feels real, you're so focused on it. But then when you jump onto the second one, the first one doesn't feel so real anymore. So again, your mind can come up with any what if. What if this? I don't know. What if I'm an astronaut? You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that it really doesn't matter what it comes up with, as long as it's a what if, and is giving you anxiety. It's OCD, but don't analyze, don't dig deep, don't turn on Google and start researching. Don't do any of that. Let that thought be, right? Again, what I was saying in the previous video, right? That, if you picture a hallway and you're walking down the hallway and things are kind of trying to get you from both directions, they can tell you whatever, but they can't reach you. Right? So just let them be on the sides of you and you just keep walking straight, You will see that, they start to kind of go away. It's because none of it is real. It's just giving you things that would potentially scare you, So all those thoughts, they're fear-driven thoughts, don't show fear, come from a position of power. What I do like about what you're saying is that the thoughts are switching. You're not stuck on one thought, because when you are stuck on one specific thought, it means that you're really powering it up. The fact that they're switching means none of them are really that powered up, but you just need to do more work in order to not give them any power. Don't put gas in those cars, you know what I mean? And then you will see that they will start to lift. But, it will try to scare you with whatever is scary to you. You just have to be focused and saying, nope, not buying it, not paying attention, just moving forward. Hey Ali, it's been about 6.5 months since I started recovery. Thank you for all your help. My life has changed and I feel that I'm strong enough. Now, I still get the thought, not so often, but like 4 times a day. I'm not reacting to it and I see it almost like a thought. I was just wondering, am I doing the right thing of not reacting to this thought? And I still reply, I guess this person says reply, to my mind how it was when I had OCD. Should I forget that I had OCD and not think even now when I no longer react to the thought most of the time? If it sounds like you're almost there, but it sounds like you are still reacting somewhere, right? Because if it's still coming 4 times a day, somewhere you are powering it up. So examine what it is that you're doing that still is powering it up, and start to eliminate it. So a lot of the times it's a good idea. So say if you're doing analyzing, because usually, if the person is not sure what they're doing wrong, usually it comes down to analyzing. So, okay, in terms of analyzing, set a limit for yourself. So, okay, I'm gonna these thoughts can come in as many times as they want, but I am gonna only allow myself to analyze the thought once every 2 days, for example. Beyond that, I'm not doing anything. So I'm still gonna give it time, but I'm only gonna do this. That puts you in control. It's still you are still doing reassurance, so it's not a giant leap forward, but it's a lot better than doing analyzing multiple times a day and just taking step back after step back, right? So it's you have to work with the best you can do in the moment, and the more you do that, the easier you will feel. Sorry, I'm just reading. Some of these are pretty long. I have been having OCD, my OCD thought for 14 years, and in no way can I get rid of it. Every time, every single moment, my brain is thinking about the thought. It just made my life a nightmare. At first, I did not have any idea about OCD and thought I'm crazy. But when I found you on YouTube, you gave me great hope to live because there's a name for my horrible feelings. In fact, my thought is not so common, at least in my opinion. I am terrified from the thought to have a sexual. Okay, so okay, and then the person just goes into the thought process. And okay, again, you have to always go back to the fact that this is an OCD thought. The more you pay attention to it, the more you power it up, the more it's going to stay in your mind. So whatever that thought is, every time you play it back, every time you pay attention, I had this thought, this is so bad. Why would I have this thought? The more you do this to yourself, the more this thought is going to come in, rather than saying, whatever, just like, how everybody else who doesn't have OCD would say, whatever, got a weird thought, 50,000 thoughts a day, some of them are pretty strange, fine, who cares? The more you do this, the less these thoughts are going to come in, because you're powering it up, and you always have to go back to the fact that your mind has no idea what the thought is about. This is not, the mind sent me this thought because there's some great importance to it. No. This is, your mind just sent you back. It's like if you're playing ball and you're throwing a ball against the wall. The ball that you threw against the wall is the same ball that's going to come back at you. It's exactly what's happening here. You show your mind, oh, I'm scared of this. Your mind's like, okay, I'll send you, a million more of these thoughts. Since you're scared of them, you have to protect yourself, So it's just that happening over and over and over again, And the mind, because it doesn't understand the thought, it can't judge that the thought is irrelevant, right? It can't stop. You can stop it by saying, I'm not playing this game anymore. Right? You're not catching that ball that's bouncing back at you anymore, But the more you catch it, the stronger it becomes. So it doesn't matter what the thought is about, especially with a religious type of OCD. It's very hard for people to grasp that concept, I find, because of how distressing the thoughts feel. I felt something bad, or I felt something, or I thought something bad, and all those kinds of things, right? And this is happening when you have religious OCD specifically. It's true for any OCD, but specifically for religious OCD, right? That it's happening to you. These thoughts are coming to you. This is not you causing these thoughts. These thoughts are coming to you. You're a victim of these thoughts. You're not the cause of these thoughts. So it's you have to kind of draw that line and say, these thoughts have nothing to do with me. They're coming on autopilot. They're generated by the part of the brain that has no idea what it's generating. So, it's kind of like if you teach a parrot to say a word and then the parrot swears at you. Well, it doesn't know what it's saying, so it doesn't really matter. That's how it works. So it's just being very focused on that. So, and if you have hard time, you know, I mean, I have the schedule up on the website now. My door is always open if you want to do the recovery program. You know, it's always available. So, you know, if you're doing it on your own, you just have to be very, very focused. I think this is the end of this part. I am recording part 2 right now, so look for it in maybe like a day or two. Please leave your questions below for the next video, and I guess I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much, guys, for supporting this channel, for the nice comments. I really do appreciate it. I will keep doing this. You can recover. That is one. The reason why I'm doing this channel, the reason why I'm doing this work is because I have a very simple message. You can recover from OCD. Work on it, you can recover. So just keep that in mind. And whoever says that you can't, okay, maybe they can't, but you can. And you have to do this. You have to put in the work because you're getting your life back, you know, and it's difficult. It's difficult work. I'm not saying it's easy. It's extremely difficult. But the reward of you getting your life back is worth the effort. Thank you guys again for watching. I'll see you in the next video.